let's get going. So welcome to this overview of mWater. I'm Petri, the product manager, and I'll be taking you through the big picture of why mWater exists, what you can do with the technology platform, and a few examples of what people are doing with the platform, as well as a bit of a tour about the key features of the platform. With a bit of time for questions at the end, if they're forthcoming. So, let's get started. The big picture view for us, really, where mWater is coming from, is to help drive towards the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. As the world has shifted to wanting to provide a sustainable level of service of key elements necessary for a flourishing human life, we want to be part of that and contribute to technology to be able to support anybody working towards that. For example, for Development Goal 6.1 for clean water and sanitation, the goal includes tracking whether water and sanitation is accessible on the premises, whether it's available when needed, and whether it's safe, meaning free of contamination. It's a lot more data that needs to be collected than perhaps previously was the case, where just the infrastructure location of a borehole might be enough, and the people roughly counted who might benefit from that might be enough to measure some kind of achievement. And the world has shifted substantially on this point, and technology needs to shift along with it. So, as part of the SDGs and also mWater's vision, we collectively need to move away from costly, inconvenient, and unsafe private infrastructure and move towards well-managed public infrastructure and sustainable services. For 6.1, it means moving from individual water points to entire water systems. And here we see a layeration visualized within mWater with real-world data of moving precisely towards that. And within the mWater theory of change, the risk and the worry is that water and sanitation services are stuck in a spiral of decline in many countries. So a lack of revenue due to poor service quality leads to even worse service quality, and users then move quite rationally to invest in private infrastructure instead, which takes away money and revenue from the public service that could thrive. So revenue decreases further, and that just keeps undermining itself. And that's why we see that gains made in access to improved water and sanitation so far are at risk due to this poor sustainability of services, rapid urbanization, and global climate change. And it's clear that the global wash sector does not have enough funding to meet the 2030 SDG targets for safely managed water and sanitation. To attract new sources of finance and to provide sustainable services, we need to collectively manage public assets and resources better, more efficiently. We need to professionalize operations and maintenance, identify innovative new models for delivering services at lower cost. So where can we save cost and deliver just as good a service or better? And collect fees and demonstrate financial accountability. All these 4 points I've just mentioned require data to be done well. So that brings us to the mWater approach, which is data-driven management of water, sanitation, and health services at root. Today, there are over 73,000 users registered on the mWater platform across the world in 178 countries using mWater to map, monitor, and manage infrastructure and services. There are 7 million sites, so points of infrastructure, mapped, and about 400,000 surveys submitted per month. So the data is live and it is being updated. The map here shows the concentrations of our users in West Africa, East Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia in particular. And as a technology platform, we have designed mWater from the ground up to be free and easy to use. A mobile data collection, online analytics and mapping. It comes basically with two components. The mobile app, which is free to download on your Android, iPhone, or use in your browser across the web. And then the mWater portal, which we will see, which can be used for survey design, data cleaning, and visualization. We've gone further than that to provide no code required custom web and mobile app building tools for developing customized management information systems, whether this is for NGOs, or governments, and utilities. A few other important features of the mWater technology include fully hosted, secure cloud servers with no setup or maintenance required. So you don't need a technician on your side to get the data collection going. You just need to sign up and you can get started right away. Even though we've got our secure cloud server, any data you collect is private by default, and it is owned by you, our users. It's not by us, mWater. And optionally, we have features to share some or all of your data for collaborative sector monitoring, to move away from the risk of ending up with data in silos, separate from the people who actually need it, and lapsing out of date all too soon, as we see happen here and there. Here in the images we see some of the features of the portal, interactive dashboards and maps that we'll be looking at later. Now, as mentioned, mWater is free for all users, and how does that work? It's free for 99%, the vast bulk of all of our users, and the costs we accrue are supported by revenue from a small but important set of paying clients. So we have an open access business model. Large organizations and programs who also see the value in this vision of moving towards global sustainability in the management of water, sanitation and hygiene invest in new features that benefit them, but also become available to everyone, to our entire user base. So the software keeps improving and it drives further adoption, which then keeps these large organizations and programs motivated to invest in ever more new features, so that we have this strong sector-wide platform. There are no ongoing software fees or hardware to maintain on your side or IT specialists required. From our side, because we have everything on a scalable cloud server, it means that the additional cost of another user, of another survey, of another million responses is very small. So we can keep scaling very effectively. And sustainable data systems might be built in collaboration with governments and stakeholders under a paid contract, and then they are handed over to be managed by those stakeholders so that they have the capacity and the editing rights to keep things up to date and running smoothly. Here we see some of the mWater investors across the 7-8 years we have been in business. On the other side of this equation, we also maintain a lean and nimble organization that keeps our costs down and focuses on effective collaboration and effective platform development across everything. So makes us able to navigate different circumstances. So that's the business model, that's the overall approach of mWater, and we see that lots of different users from different walks of life have come to adopt mWater in many ways, and that includes NGOs, utilities, academic institutions, local organizations, and governments at various levels within different countries, all the way up to national responses. So I'll just demonstrate a few examples of the kinds of uses that mWater has been put to. For example, in Haiti, mWater has had long-standing involvement, and most recently with a COVID-19 emergency response, wash and healthcare facilities rapid assessment. So technicians who are already familiar with the mWater mobile app can go, whilst they visit public hygiene stations, enter data into their mobile app, and then get that visualized in these interactive consoles. It's just from the very latest cutting edge of what we're doing with mWater. And this data is automatically analyzed according to the WHO and UNICEF wash fit indicators. It's a powerful approach. Another long-standing piece of work with water in Malawi is a national level water point asset inventory. This is in collaboration with the Malawian government and technically led by the University of Strathclyde in Scotland. And this includes a survey and a mapping of all of the water points in the entire country, and then capturing various pieces of data relating to that, with additional support around building institutional capacity to keep an ongoing momentum around this kind of data collection, so that this isn't just a one-off exercise, but a living system that brings together new updates as well as analysis and decision-making support, so that this data, when you have it at the district level and the regional level and the national level, can be used to drive important decision-making on which water points to rehabilitate, what's working, what isn't, where to build new water points perhaps, and improve coverage. In Malawi, the national database was also used to coordinate emergency cyclone response earlier. We have a number of examples. I'll jump into the live system also now to demonstrate what that looks like in practice. Here we see the mWater portal. You can navigate to that yourself and sign up for free at portal.mwater.co. So that's not com, that's co. And here, if I jump to an example console for us, we see the Haiti country overview. So this is separate from just the wash fit COVID response. We see that water access is collected across the country with action plans, detailed maps, and other analytics driven by field data. These are all things, analytics built directly in the portal, something you as a new user might replicate. We also have extensive mapping capability in mWater, where you can layer as many layers of data driven by what's in the system and accessible to you, or even data that you bring from the outside as raster layers, for example, or data imports. So here we should see a bit of groundwater potential, population density mapping, as well as planned access. Let's see if it loads. Excellent. So we start to see the power of being able to bring live data that's been collected in the field and perhaps this more scientific information about groundwater potential all overlaid. And the pipeline of updating this new information is made to be as straightforward as possible. Another use at the organizational level, for example, is an inventory of interventions. WaterAid, UK and associated country programs, for example, use mWater to track their internal inventory of interventions, meaning all the communities they have supported and their partners' work has supported, schools, health facilities, water point installations, and sanitation facilities, all driven through this mWater technology. In terms of custom analytics, we can build and do build these separate portals for use, and we can discuss these kinds of customizations on a case-by-case basis. Okay, so we've seen some use cases of mWater used to track interventions, used to work on water, sanitation, and health. Now I will start touring a little bit around the different components of the system in practice. I'll open up the app, which you can also do from either by downloading the Android, the Apple iOS or apps, or going to app.mwater.co in your browser. And these are all interchangeable entities where you can start work in one app and continue it on the same account if you've synchronized with the server. And here we keep the usability and the workflow very simple. So you can either, in the typical app configuration, you can either add a site, meaning some kind of point in the world, like a water point, health facility, community, or start a survey, which means a survey that you have access to or you have designed. And you can have any kinds of questions pretty much in the survey. And finally, you can link your surveys to your sites. So you can have a water point monitoring survey and keep coming back to the same water point over time and linking the survey you fill in to that site. And then when you are analyzing the data and asking questions about it, that makes it very easy to ask, hey, what about that water point site I've gone to 10 times? How has it developed over time? Because all the surveys are linked to that site, the system is able to tell you that very swiftly. I'll just show you the map here, where we see all these bits of live data and of the types that I've allowed to be shown. So in this case, community, school, and water point, but we see that there's much else going on, including water systems and pipes in many parts of the world. And each of these sites is an interactive updatable component where you get to set how protected that data is and contains a few key pieces of data that you can record. So the type, a photo, the location, lifting device perhaps, and so on. And this is what the users and enumerators will see when they're using mWater in the field. They can add new sites, new surveys, update existing ones, get feedback from data managers, and so on. The app is also available in 17 languages and is being used across the world. So that's part one of the mWater ecosystem, the app, and on the portal we see that there's a number of components as well. I will briefly demonstrate the ease of creating new surveys. There is a bunch of guidance, both as documents and as videos, on how to create new surveys that you can access from the help menu on the top right of the portal. But we've designed the survey creation to be very straightforward and mouse driven. what you see is what you get. So you don't create it in Excel. You just go onto the site with an internet connection and you can start adding questions. There's a whole bunch of different types of questions you can choose from. All the typical ones you might want to have in a survey, in your paper surveys if you're using them, or other data collection software if you're using them. So that includes numbers, drop-downs, radio buttons, text, checkboxes, multi-checks, dates and units, and very importantly also site questions, which allow you to do that linking I mentioned between surveys and sites. So bridging together, for example, a water point survey and a water point infrastructure site, as well as things like images and even Likert questions and linked lists and so on. So a comprehensive set of options that has evolved through interaction with our thousands of users. You can type the question text, adjust the format, and importantly, I'll briefly mention that you can also set validation rules to improve your data quality. So, for example, preventing negative numbers or an age that is an impossible one, and so on. And you can also bring in and build in conditionality. So, when is it the case that this question should be displayed? For example, maybe some questions should only be displayed for a certain district, or if a certain water point technology has been chosen. Then you don't have to leave it to the enumerator to always know. You can actually help them along by building conditionality into the survey. If it's a borehole, then these questions will show. And there's a bunch of guidance on how to do that specifically, but you would start by adding conditions here. And there's also a bunch of metadata you can optionally collect, especially useful if you are just wanting to keep an eye on whether surveys are being filled in a reasonable time, not too slow, not too fast, and are enumerators actually there where they should be, by taking a snapshot GPS location of the enumerator's device when this question is answered. So you can do those kinds of things and some other more nuanced, advanced things. And once you've created a question, you can copy, paste, move them around, edit them, remove them, and so on. There's no limit to how many surveys you can create, and no limit to how many questions you might have in a survey. You can translate them into other languages, and this is also where you share permissions with the survey, who else can edit it, who else can see it, and who are your enumerators from the deployment. And then, when you've done your data collection, you can also see the responses coming in real time. So as long as your enumerator has an internet connection and synchronizes data, you will see it coming in. Now, I should mention at this point that mWater is designed on the app side to work fully offline. So your enumerators can get your surveys when they're in the city, head out to the field where they will not have internet for 2 weeks, keep collecting that data, keep their phones safe, and come back, and once they have access to the internet again, their devices will synchronize with the mWater cloud, and the responses will show up for you as a manager. You can also set up various chains of validation for your data, so a response doesn't get finalized until a data manager has had a chance to look at it, for example, and give feedback on it, and perhaps the enumerator then acts on that feedback and corrects something that wasn't right. So we've tried to build in lots of ways to improve data quality, either by good question design and validation, or by these management workflows that allow you to catch issues when a data collection process is ongoing. And that's one of the big benefits, of course, of doing data collection in a digital way. Look at that in the responses. We can look at the indicators, which is a whole other level of power within mWater. Let me jump, however, to dashboards. Now we've seen a flavor of how you might go and create a survey. The next step is you deploy it, people collect data, and you get responses. Now you're excited with good responses of data and want to see some responses visualized and analyzed. So one way to do this is to build a dashboard. And a dashboard in mWater is one page where you can bring together as many pieces of text, images, charts, maps, tables, and so on as you like to plug into data that is available to you or data that you've collected. So it's a blank canvas that you can start interacting with. I want to show an example of a simple dashboard to show you how they work and what you can do with them. So here in my example in the mWater portal, I have a basic dashboard of the water point inventory in Malawi. So let's take a look at what components we have here. We've got the title and we've got some quick filters, as we call them. So if I wanted to zoom in this whole view into a single district, I could do that. I can choose Blantyre, and all the related data, as you can see, will update and filter down to just Blantyre in this case. I can remove that filter, and so on. Basically, any field of data that I have in my collection, I can use as a filter if I want to. We see that here I've got a dynamically driven field. This number is not typed in by me, but generated by the data in the system. So this tells me that within Malawi, there are these almost 126,000 mapped water points alone. The next chart shows me the water points by type, JMP definition type. And what's also neat is if I want to start digging into this, I can click a part of the bar chart, and you see that everything else that's linked to this data updates accordingly. So I've now selected protected dug wells, and here in my donut chart on the right side, I can see water point functionality for those protected dug wells as follows. So okay, we see that more than half are functional on the latest monitoring, and so on, what are partially functional and where there might be data gaps. And I can keep digging in by filtering down and so on. And I can perhaps also compare borehole functionality. I should assume it's pretty good. If I compare that to unprotected dug wells, I should expect that there's much more in the way of gaps, which is true. If I keep diving in here to a specific location, I see that perhaps there's a bit of more data collection that's required. Now, in my simple example dashboard, I'm also able to get at the underlying data by having a table. So I've created a table widget with data. You can see I've got all the water point data with the type, name, functionality. I can also zoom into it, pop it up by clicking a row on this table, and see the site itself in mWater. So it's all connected if you've done it right, and all accessible due to the power of the relational database structure on our cloud server. So I will just touch on what you can do when you've built a nice dashboard. You can print it off onto a PDF or paper. You can also share it with the world. So either you can share it with other users of the platform within your organization or without, or you can create a link that you can then share with anybody. So I want to emphasize that data you collect is yours and private. We don't see it, but we also make it easy for you to bring stakeholders up to speed on key bits of whatever you want to share regarding your data. Got a bunch more minutes left, so I will just step by step demonstrate how to add a widget. You can explore to your heart's content how to do this in our free portal. But let's say I want to see boreholes by depth. I can choose my preferred widget type. When I'm editing the dashboard, I'll take a chart, I'll drag it in, so I'm dragging and I'm dropping. I get my empty chart, I can adjust it if I like in terms of size, and now I just need to define it. And the steps in their simplicity are quite basic. I need to choose the source of data out of all the sources available to me, and then I need to choose the field of data or fields of data, and then I can do any customization to make it look and feel as I like. So there's a bunch of chart options. I'll stick to the basics, pick a bar chart. I'm already offered the data source I want because my dashboard has it. So this is water points, of course. That's what we've been looking at. And now the horizontal, the x-axis of the chart needs to know where it's getting its data from. This is the data source explorer in mWater, and it is a complicated part purely because it depends on the data that you're looking at. If you have a simple survey, this screen will look simple. If you have a long survey, this screen will be long and complicated, but it will always map to the survey you've created or the site that you are using. You can use the search field to find what you're looking for, but I happen to know that water points have the optional field of depth available to them. So when an enumerator is in the field and collecting data in mWater, they can choose to fill in the depth in meters from ground level to the bottom of the well or end of borehole where relevant. And it can automatically create these bins. Let's say I want to filter out those ones where depth isn't relevant. I so quickly get this distribution of depth. So let me just put a title here. We can get into the nuances, coloring this and all that, but we have guides for this. And as mentioned before, this Friday, the 3rd of July, we will be hosting a webinar specifically on visualization at 2 p.m. GMT it is. So now we have a new chart that is fitting in our dashboard, and it is linked to the water points. So if I choose boreholes, I should expect quite deep depth. If I choose unprotected dug wells and filter down to them, I see the opposite picture. And let's say I want to look at the functionality of the shallowest bits or the water quality of them, I can do my exploration in this way. So this is just to give you a flavor of what can be done in dashboards in mWater. This can be taken in any direction depending on what data you have and how you want to use it. Other things to mention are maps and consoles. Maps are for when you want a full page map of your data. Let's say I wanted to visualize all these water points in Malawi. I can do that in a map. I'm not going to demonstrate the mechanics more closely beyond urging you to go explore and add. The process is similar. Start creating a layer, choose a data source, and choose what you want to map. Of course, there needs to be a way for that data to have a location, to have a point in the world for it to be visualized like this, as we have water points by different types all across Malawi here. There's a number of options you can explore, but the basics are the same. You create the map and you can choose to share it or print it as is relevant. Finally, for the visualization side today, just want to mention consoles, which are a way of bringing together as many maps, as many dashboards, pieces of text, and data tables, or as we call them, data grids, as you want. So here I've just got these tabs where I've got this data dashboard we were looking at, as well as this map, all in one place. So if you want to share a story, have this command center perhaps of your data where you know where everything is and these tabs relate to each other, then consoles are the place to bring it all together. Dashboards are single page visualizations, maps are single page maps, but in consoles you can bring them all together. Okay, let me see if there's any questions that have arrived. Excellent. I have a few people watching, but no questions. So let me carry on. And if you've just joined us, we will be recording this session and this will be available online. So we can see the scale and the power a little bit of what you can do already for free in mWater. If you are doing things at scale, we strongly recommend you look into using organizations as the way to do it. Organizations allow you to manage any number of enumerators with lesser effort. So let me open up one. Here's a demonstration organization. And a few things that they enable you to do is in this simple tree structure, where in my demonstration organization, let's say it's split into 3 country programs, as I'm an international NGO or agency, and the countries are split into teams by districts perhaps, or partners. And we can see that there's a differing number of users in each. So now I can start managing my data collection and sharing by these branches. I don't have to worry about remembering each user separately each time. I just set up my organization, my country team, my district team, and then I can say, okay, well, for the country A, let's say Malawi Water Point Survey, I want District A enumerators to be tracking it, and I want District A managers to be managing the data that the enumerators here collect. That makes sense. So it allows me to control the data collection in a more nuanced way as an admin, and I can also choose who gets to see what more easily. So I can prevent country C from accidentally editing sites managed by country A, for example, or surveys that have been deployed to country A are not editable by country B or country C. So it's this visibility and management, and also you can click into the level that's visible to you, and you can even see activity summaries and logs. So you can see, is there stuff happening? Is it happening? What have users been up to? And so on. The notification drop down might also be useful for that purpose. So to summarize, if you're doing a one-off survey, perhaps you don't need an organization. But if you are an NGO, utility, government looking at making use of mWater, please take a look at organizations, and you can save yourself a lot of hassle going onwards. I'd like to swing back to the SDG point I began this introduction with. So a really core part of mWater is the capacity to have indicators. Primarily for us, indicators are linked to the SDGs, and we have a library that you can look at. It's an evolving library with work being done on it, where we've worked, for example, with WASH experts to create sets of questions that link to these indicators. What do indicators allow us to do? Well, first of all, it allows users to align with the right data collection efforts. So if you wanted to track SDG 6.1 at the household level, you could go to the indicator library, pick the household 6.1 indicator, and start a whole survey around this indicator. This would create a new survey for you, and then you can start adding questions and moving them around But nonetheless, you would know that you're collecting the same bits as others using the same indicator. So you would be comparing apples to apples, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel and necessarily think through things that are already solved or somebody else has already looked at. So you can see for the well-defined indicators we have text definitions and notes on how to use them, and you also see what are the bits of data that go into them. And you see here the questions that would be asked by your enumerators that would be brought into your survey. So that's one part of the power of indicators, is bringing in these aligned questions. The second part is that we can also set these indicators to do automatic calculations. What I mean by that is, as we know, the SDG 6.1, to actually get the service level determination, you need quite a bit of data. So you need the availability, you need the location, distance, you need the quality, you need the type of the water point, all these things. Now, wouldn't it be nice if the system could also tell you, okay, well, this household, we know all this data, so what is the service level? Well, the good news is that in mWater you can. So we set up the logic that you can transparently view of how that's working. So if I were to start a new survey wanting to collect my household SDG 6.1, I can go and look at my calculation, indicator library calculations, and I can see how the safely managed data is being generated. So I appreciate this is complex, what you will see, but it's because the indicator is complex. So I'll just touch on that one thing. So what is mWater doing for you if you use one of our indicator library indicators? It takes the raw data that you collect and you keep private to yourself, and then it can tell you if the water point is an improved water point. Okay, the system calculates that. If the location of the water point is in your own dwelling or in your own yard. All right. And if the availability of water is good, so the water is available, and the water quality test that you have conducted has resulted in a pass, then the system will say, okay, you've managed to reach at this household survey level the safely managed SDG 6.1 determination, and so on and so on. So that's the second great power of indicators in mWater, which is you have your aligned questions, and when they've been set up you also get the higher level insight. And this applies as much to the SDGs as it might apply to your own organizational indicators. So if you have KPIs that are perhaps aligned with SDGs but really internal to your organization, you could talk to us at mWater. You can email info@mwater.co or me, Petri, at mwater.co, and we can discuss how to go about creating indicators that you can make the most of. So that can save you hundreds of hours of labor of manual analytics if you have the system just automatically calculating that for you. So I urge you to look at the documentation around indicators and the global indicator library, where we have hundreds and hundreds of indicators available to be looked at and brought into your surveys. Just a few other things to mention in the system as well that we're not going to cover much today, but to give you a rounded sense. Water systems is a growth direction for mWater. So going beyond these individual boreholes and so on, and going into entire systems with pipes, water point components, pumps and generators and other system components is something that the free package can handle for you. So here we see a system in Haiti, we saw on a slide earlier, so all the pipes modeled, the water points and system components. Right now you can pick up mWater and track your assets for a water system for free. So up to thousands of water points, hundreds of water installations and so on. You can always also export data from mWater. You can import it in easily, but it's fundamental to how we work that you can also get it out. So you're never stuck with us or if you want to take the data to other analysis tools, you can do that. You can download the system. So already you can make use of water systems, and you will see this functionality growing and developing over time, including custom accounting stuff. So I mentioned at the start that one of the 4 components that need data and are required to stop the spiral of decline is accountability and accounting data. So we're working on water utility accounting systems out of the box so that a water utility can better keep track and demonstrate its financial transparency and capability. So water systems. If you want to take a look at water systems, you can go to Manage Water Systems. Site approvals, it means data validation for sites, and data grids means spreadsheet views of your data. So simply columns and rows of data that you might want to see. Any example here? Straightforward. So columns, rows, so on. 2 more things. We have issues. So these are like tickets. If a water point breaks down and you want to track that and assign somebody to fix it, perhaps you could use issues and talk to us about them, or pick up one of the existing ones, maintenance one, and you can see its progress and keep it updated. And then finally, I'd like to direct your attention to the Resource Center, the mWater Resource Center here, always available on the top right, with a table of contents on the right side. So there's a bunch of material, documents, images, and videos, as well as ways to keep in touch with us and see what's new. You can search the table of contents to find documents, and if you select one, you will get that page here. We have instructions on how to use Google Translate to automatically translate the portal to another language, and are very open to suggestions on how to keep adding materials to fill in any gaps. So we really do want new users to be independent users of mWater. Get started, sign up, make use of it, talk to their peers, and figure it out. So that's why we provide this documentation, and we want it to be good and robust. So your feedback is appreciated. If you're an organization thinking about adopting mWater along with the hundreds of other organizations and thousands of users, and want to do it at scale and well, then please get in touch with us. We do offer trainings remotely, of course, as well as in person, and those can be tailored to your needs, and to get you to get the most out of mWater. Sometimes we see people pick up mWater, use it well, but don't make use of a critical feature or few, and then miss out on an opportunity that would be saving them hundreds of hours of effort or thousands in costs. And I'll round things up by just mentioning Solstice. Solstice is the sister brand of mWater, which branches out beyond water, sanitation, and hygiene. So this YouTube channel, as well as the Resource Center, will talk a bit about Solstice. And really, it's came about because people were already making use of mWater beyond wash. So on girls' education, animal welfare, environmental things, agriculture. And it was difficult perhaps for some to lobby the use of a tool, a platform called mWater within an organization, when the data collection doesn't strictly have anything to do with wash. So that's why we created Solstice as the global sector agnostic solution. And what it means is it's the same thing as mWater, with the same back end, the same functionality that you can see at solstice.world. It has its separate app and a separate website, but you can begin a data collection in mWater and complete it in Solstice, or vice versa. the systems talk to each other. They're at root the same system with just a different layer of paint on top. So if you want to use this kind of technology more broadly, take a look at Solstice, or if you have somebody in mind who would benefit from free data collection, analysis and management software, like I've just demonstrated, then take a look at Solstice at solstice.world with its own separate apps. And I'll finally just show you how you can stay in touch, so you can connect with us also on Facebook. That's both with Solstice and with mWater. We're active on Twitter and we're active on LinkedIn. And of course through email you can talk to us. So let's see if any questions have come through. That concludes my presentation. I see a few watchers. Any questions at this point as we come to the end of our mWater overview? I will remind you that this session is recorded and will be available online. This Friday, the 3rd of July at 2 p.m. GMT, there will be an hour-long session on visualizations in particular. And we are starting up this weekly set of video webinars that will cover topics that our users most want to learn about. That will include things like how to import and export data, as well as more complicated things around mapping perhaps, or water systems, and so on. But the agenda is open to your feedback. Okay, so I don't think there are any questions today, so I'm going to wrap this presentation up and thank you very much for your attention. And if you want to talk to me further, please just email us at info@mwater.co, or me personally at Petri, Petri, at mwater.co, and absolutely feel free to experiment in mWater to your heart's content. Create surveys, create dashboards, create maps, create organizations, learn and make use of it, and let's bring about some more sustainable wash through the prudent use of data. Thank you very, very much. See you again.